Hi everyone, my name's PK, and here I have Monica Salazar, who is an accountant based in Brisbane. And this story of hers, I really wanted to elevate and put out there because she volunteered to share her story for the benefit and betterment of the wider property investment community, just to help inspire people, help educate people. And like I always say, try to create a level of reality, because property investing is not all, how do you say, like, it's not all roses. There's challenges, there's obstacles, there's mindset hurdles we need to overcome, but she has overcome a lot of them. And like I said, she's an accountant based in Brisbane. She started with a lot of debt, and I'm not talking like real estate property investment debt, but she was in a lot of debt, which we'll get into. But she kind of turned her life around and got up to 6 investment properties for herself by herself. And so it's like a massive achievement, but I really want to break that down with her assistance today, and to really enthuse everyone to really understand what's possible for you guys out there. So Monica, on behalf of everyone, and to start with, I just want to say thank you, like I was saying before we hit record as well, for making time and doing this session.
Thank you very much for having me, PK. I think it really is an honor to be here and speaking to you, especially when I'm not a client of yours at the moment. You're still open to hearing about my story, so I am very privileged to be here.
No, the privilege is mine. And I should also say, like you've just said, Monica is not a client of mine. This is not some sort of to promote anything that I do. This is just like real, honest, authentic, like facts and some, like a real human being, the journey, the story that she's been on. So I think people can let their guard down and be like, okay, I'm okay to absorb what I'm about to hear. Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK, and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you. Monica, just the first question, I always like to ask this question. What was your situation before you started investing in real estate?
Yeah, so I'll go back to maybe the most relevant part of my story, and that was when I had a relationship breakdown. And I had to move out and basically start from scratch. So I moved in with my parents and felt really sorry for myself, living back again with my parents at the age of 30. And so I thought to myself, if I needed to really move on with my life, I needed to move out again. And so I started getting myself set up to move out. And I didn't really have any money at the time because I just purchase all kinds of furniture and other items with my ex-partner at the time. And so really I didn't have any savings with me when I moved out. So I had to take out a credit card debt, and I went with it's like $5,000. I could make it. I went with $5,000, and I used that sparingly, went on Gumtree, Facebook, everything. So I managed to set up a unit, which I lived there, and my sister also lived there. And I was comfortable, had enough to pay my debt, had enough to enjoy life, go out, have a drink, party. Yeah. So that was where I started. It was all good up until about a year later. I found myself battling another issue, and that was a legal battle. So I was in a new relationship. Then I had already moved from the unit to a new location, and the legal battle was going to put me in a situation where everything I had worked for was going to be at risk, including my career as an accountant. So it was a very serious matter, and so I really fought for it. And I was going to go all in and fight hard. I can't really talk about the story because it was quite a serious situation. Sure. But so I went hard. And so I to keep fighting, legal fees, they're very expensive. They spiral very quickly. And so I maxed out the same credit card that I had a 5K debt on, maxed it out. I think it was about 20K, that the highest that I could get. That ran out within literally maybe one or two bills. And I had to then go find another solution. And so I went and got a personal loan, got approved right away because I was still in a not so bad situation. So I got that for about 50K. And also at the same time, I had already bought a brand new car too at the time. So like I had a brand new car debt, I had a credit card debt, I had a personal debt. So all up, that was roughly about 120 already at that point, 120, 130. And that was within a short space of time.
Right.
And then because things were getting really, really bad, the place where I was also living in had to move out of that one too, because it was starting to get expensive, like not able to be maintained. My partner at the time had to also keep battling the legal battle, same legal battle with me. And so he had to, he wasn't earning anything at the time. And with his car, couldn't pay the car, so I took that on too. So I took on a lot of debt under my name. And when I actually look back, it was around nearly 200,000. I thought it was about 150, but it was actually nearly 200,000 by the time I added it all up and revisited the story. And it got to the stage where it was really weighing me down. And I thought to myself, I cannot be an accountant. Like I might as well just quit my profession and not be an accountant at all if I'm going to be in this situation. So I thought to myself, there's got to be an answer. There's other people out there who have found themselves in situations like this. And so I did what I had to do. So at first we moved out of the place that we were living in, got a smaller place that was cheaper. I revisited all of our budgets and started culling anything that we could cull, started putting together a budget, which, tools and stuff, they don't heavily teach you about these things. And in my profession as an accountant, in my education as an accountant, they teach how to manage other people's money and other business people's money, not so much your own. So, and how I found it is that I almost had to relearn everything. And having to relearn everything meant I had to revisit every material I could think of that I need, or every topic I could think of that I needed to revisit. Like it almost felt like I needed to be a whole new accounting student again, but this time to learn things for myself, not for other people. So
not just accountants though, right? Like we go to university or whatever, and we learn how to be of service to employers, but never of how to be of service to ourselves. And we think we're really smart and educated, and we have that certificate, that degree, but it's like we can't help ourselves. All we know is how to help others, and if they like us enough, they're going to pay us some money. Like for me, that's the definition of a servant.
Yes, I felt like I was a great servant. I was freaking good at what I was doing. I ended up in this situation, like this doesn't make sense. And so I needed to prove to myself that I could also turn myself around. And even if that meant being humble and having to really relearn everything all over again, like I was willing to do that. So I mentioned before, I became very resourceful and didn't really know exactly where to start. So the first thing that I did start doing was YouTube. And I didn't realize how useful YouTube is. So much on YouTube. And I went on Spotify. Spotify had free podcasts, and iTunes had free podcasts. So I started playing everything I could think of that related to money management and being mindful with money. What else is there? I went to the public library and I borrowed every single book I could.
That's old school.
It was like a library. So I started using their library too, and I had them send books to me. And so I would have like stacks and stacks of books that I had with me. It had topics about asset protection, tax minimization. I went and started also learning about financing. So I learned a little bit about mortgage. I went into like finding out about, rebudgeting all over again. I went back to basics.
And you're an accountant, like it's kind of ironic that you're learning
It's so
about.
ironic, but I went back to basics because I think sometimes when you find yourself in a very, very difficult situation, sometimes the things that are quite, what do you call it, like simple or common sense, they don't quite come to you. And so I found that by going back to basics, it kind of brings them all back. Like say for example, like going to the doctors. I used to go to the doctors that I would pay for, and so I started like finding bulk billing doctors. And same with my health insurance. I didn't really know how to compare them, and then I found some tips in these books. You know how they say you should get some advice, so I didn't. It's just action. Okay. I was like, that sounds reasonable. I'll go with that.
I have no reference point for whether that's a good deal or not, but let's go for it anyway.
I'm not going to recommend it to other people, but for me, I was already like in a position that isn't ideal. So like, how bad could it get? It was already bad.
And like, what like time frame was this? Was this like recent? How many years ago was this?
Started in. I looked back, and it started around August, September 2019. And then when I look back at when I started taking action around, like literally from September, October, I started taking action. Right. And so with the cars that I had under my name as loans, I refinanced them and I stretched them out to make them longer so that way I get back some, cash flow relaxation again from the refinancing. And the same thing with the credit card and the personal loan, the same thing. I refinanced them and I found one that was willing to take them on and consolidate them for a fixed interest rate. So the two actions that I did helped with the cash flow situation. So it wasn't ideal, but it was what worked at the time.
Yeah, so, you make the best with what you've got. And I think, I mean, I personally can't relate to this kind of, I mean, I have empathy, but it's like when you have $200,000 of like personal loans and credit card debt, it must feel like not just a monkey, but like this massive like animal on your shoulders, on your head, on your back. It's like burden. I think maybe a lot of people will buckle, and instead of being proactive and kind of switching on and being like, okay, how can I improve my cash flow? I can stretch out my loans. What can I do in terms of lowering costs, improving my household budget? It's like, oh my God, like you can't even get up in the morning because you don't probably want to get up. It's like your whole life is not going the way you wanted. So I think that's amazing how you're able to be proactive and take the initiative with a real can do sort of attitude in that environment. And is that like once you had done these initial hygiene factors, you could say, of just money management or financial literacy, is that when you started thinking of like, okay, well, how do I actually improve my money inflow, or how do I improve my net wealth? Is that where property came in, or is that much later still?
A little bit later, because I think what I needed to do was set the fundamentals right again. And so by having a manageable debt repayment, that started allowing me space in my head to then think, okay, how can I then have more income coming in? And that's when the first thing I did, because it said it in the books, was to ask for a pay rise.
How did that go?
So I did. I asked for a pay rise, and I took on the challenge of doing more duties and taking on more roles. So yes, that also worked, and that helped with the cash flow even better. But the way I see it, though, is like most people probably wouldn't have done the whole stretching out the loan, because a lot of advisors would immediately go, oh, but over a long time you're paying more interest. Yes, that's true, if you have no other plans other than just to keep it for that entire term. So that's the mindset that I thought to myself, okay, I will do this, but then I have another plan. And that's when I decided, okay, I need to earn more. And if I can earn more and I have more ability to save or have a gap, that I can then use for investing, then that's what I do. So the next thing that I did is I almost had to go back again and relearn how to invest.
Okay.
And so I was a bit scared there, so I didn't do it right away. So the next thing I learned is about investing within super. So I didn't even know that was an option. So I was just with one of those standard and retail super fund,
Sure.
and I found that there's other retail super fund that allows you to invest your own superannuation your way. So I took a punt and I just rolled to a new one and allocated, I think it was 80 or 90% of my super. I put it into a place that allows me to invest, and I made it like my play money. It sounds bad, but I made it my play money, and I did that for I think I did that for quite some time, and I just used it as my way of getting myself learning how to read the charts, learning how to read performance. And while I was doing that, that's when I came across REITs. And REITs was when I learned, property, that's something I can do. And I found that REITs at the time was actually really low. And I thought, it's very low. Why is that? And then I checked out interest rate. Interest rate is really low. Maybe I should invest. And
So if anyone doesn't know, REITs means real estate investment trust, mostly like unit trusts that invest in commercial property.
Yeah. Honestly, like to be honest with you, like when I saw that, yeah, it's real estate, but I didn't really know what's behind it.
Yeah, sure.
Didn't really know anything about it, but it was real estate. Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah.
So I tried to understand that to the best of my abilities at the time, and I put my money in it. And I knew it was, of course, at the low point, and I wasn't going to get anything for my money for a little while until it comes back. But I used that as kind of like that starting point to get myself learning about property. And so when I thought that the interest rate was at its lowest, I then started looking at Vanguard, and I looked at all of the charts within Vanguard that shows portfolio performances. And I just kept following information. And then in that, it showed the US market, the US stock market, the US property market. I'm like, there's this big trend from GFC. And I went back and I thought, and GFC, like I missed out totally in GFC. Like I saw what happened in GFC. Prices were so low, and then suddenly, like prices now, property market went up, and I learned about quantitative easing. So I just kept following like all of this, I guess things that made me curious. And so I went to myself, okay, interest rate is very, very low. Interest rate is very, very low as well in GFC. Property prices were also a bit low at the time of GFC. Maybe there's a correlation here. There's some quantitative easing. Maybe something might happen. I didn't really know. Didn't know at all what was going to happen. So I went in there and I didn't have any money to start with, but I kind of have enough to go with. So I asked my parents for some money.
Okay.
So the only thing is, at the time when I asked them for money, they didn't know that I was in $200,000.
Right.
And so, so I don't know whether they'll ever see this video, but I am so sorry, Mom and Dad.
I hope do they know now?
But yeah, like I had no money. I bet they wouldn't have given me the money if they found out.
Yeah,
but
sure.
they had trust in me. Like they knew my background. They knew how I worked. They knew my grit and my perseverance. So they gave me the money, and then I went out and saw brokers. But eventually, I just landed with one of the major big banks. And got them to pre-approve me with a loan. And so I started searching for a property to invest in. Couldn't find one that was within the amount that I was approved for in Brisbane. So I did go out of Brisbane, and I invested in a location that most property gurus or other people out there would probably say to avoid. But at the time, it's what worked for me. So I think what I kept going on with is what works for me. Yes. It's not always about what other people say you should or shouldn't do, because sometimes you have to consider your own personal situation.
100%.
Yeah, and my personal situation didn't allow me to invest in those areas that I wish I could have been able to invest in. I had to invest in a place where other people say don't invest in.
Okay.
So I did that. And so I found myself a couple of properties, and I bought them for the land. I bought them because I wanted an opportunity to do something with the land, but I didn't know what that was. I
Right.
just knew that, there's land there, land is scarce. I learned about, difference between investing in units and investing in houses, and you're best off always going with one that's got land. So I went with that, and instead of putting the pre-approved money or pre-approved funds into one property, I went with two. And that was out of fear. That was actually because if I didn't have tenants for one property, I just don't have any more income. But I found a property that had two houses. And so that allowed me to then have that leverage that if one was vacant, at least I still have half the income coming from the other. So I went with that. And it was a very dilapidated two houses lot. And I was scared. There's no lie about it. When I saw the building and test report, I just thought, I'm out. But I didn't, because I thought to myself, where would I find again another property like this? It's very difficult. You don't normally find something that costs, like, it was very, very low. Like the two houses were 210, and I had a 7% yield. And so to me, that gave me comfort. So I'm like, I'm going to go with it, even though the house is scary. It has some water damage. It has very old roof, rusty roof. It's got holes in it. It's got issues. It's got termite damage. It's like, it's a scary building.
Okay.
Other people would have backed out.
Right.
And but I didn't. I thought to myself, it can't get worse, right? It was already worse. It can't get worse now. So I went with that one. And I just held that for a little bit longer. And then when one of the tenants did move out, I spent some money, which I also didn't have, but I had about $3,000. And so I went with $3,000 to renovate a house. I'm not too sure how many people out there have done renovation for that such small budget, but that $3,000 allowed me to create 50,000 of
3,000. Did you say?
$3,000 allowed me to create 50,000 worth of equity.
And equity.
And I was shocked. And so, like, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like trialing what I read or what I heard from podcasts or YouTube. And so that 50,000 thought to me, what can I do with that one? So I asked in the bank, can you lend me more money? I didn't have this refinancing. I didn't know what this equity release was. I just told them, can I do an equity release, please? I didn't really know what I was talking about. So so they pre-approved me again, but it was again another very small amount. It was only like 200 something. It was small, and so I was finding it very difficult to find anything. And then COVID happened. So when I couldn't find anything, then COVID happened. Suddenly I was able to find something. So
because there were like some distressed people that were selling.
Yeah, so a property that was already under offer from maybe like 2 or 3 offers. The last one fell through because the person who had the offer on the property lost their job. Right. And I was the only one left in the list who was still interested. So again, I was scared. It was a deceased estate. I didn't really know like what to do about it. It had a lot of problems as well, more problems than the first ones.
Okay.
And a bad history. So again, I was scared about that, but I put in, like, I locked it in. And then this one, I also renovated. And this time around, it was a bit more expensive. I went from $3,000 to $8,000. Okay. That was very cheap, right? So I went $8,000.
I love the frugal kind of renovations that you're doing.
Frugal, like everything from Facebook, everything from secondhand places, everything that I could find for the cheapest. And I was like negotiating hard.
Are you doing these renovations like yourself? Are you employing?
There's a lot of sweat equity involved. Right. A lot of sweat equity. So I was doing long hours. So I would go from 6 to 9 a.m. in the morning, educating myself. From 9 to 5 of the day during my work hours, I would be working my hours. Then I'd drive over to the property and spend the rest of the night until 10 p.m. renovating. And I was doing that for 4 weeks to 8 weeks straight. Wow. So the first one was 4 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the third one was 4 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the fourth one was 6 months because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the fifth one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the sixth one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the seventh one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the eighth one was 4 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the ninth one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the 10th one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the 11th one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the 12th one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the 13th one was 8 weeks because it was a very simple renovation for $3,000. And then the was a disease estate. There was a lot of work to be done. Like it was very unkempt. It was not maintained at all.
Right.
I had like friends and family assist where they could. And like I was the most frugal and the most cheap person you could think of in the world.
Yeah. But this, I mean, that's so good to hear though, from the perspective that you don't need to have so many funds. Just to dive deep on the renovation for a second, you don't need to do like these $30,000, $50,000 renovations. You don't need to like create a new bedroom or extend the house. Most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, you just put like a new coat of paint, the right shade, make it consistent throughout the house, make the doorknobs or like the kitchen knobs, the like handles for cupboards and stuff very nice, maybe chrome, like consistent. The light fixtures, like light fixtures. And honestly, when you walk into a home that's been been renovated like that, maybe a little bit of landscaping at the front, throw some mulch out there, mow the lawn, trim the hedges, it just seems so fresh, and that's really all that's required for an investment property.
Yes, for an investment. Yeah. And that's all I did. I just freshened up the place so that it's going to look attractive for the next tenant, and they'll pay more. And that was the result of the first one. That was the result of the second one. And it did also help again with the next revaluation. So the next revaluation allowed me to get 100,000. Wow. Additional new equity, and that was helped by not just the renovation but also the market at the time.
So now we're in COVID, so now it's like 2020 or 2021.
2021. Yeah.
So the market, so I didn't ask you so you bought, is it 2 or 3 properties by now? Which suburbs have you bought these in?
All of these were in the region of Ipswich.
Ipswich. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people say
including me. Like I'm one of those people as well who say that Ipswich is not the best area. Of course, it's done really well in COVID, as everywhere has, but it comes back to that principle. Like if you've only got 200K to spend, then you got to invest it somewhere. Better than not investing it, right? Exactly. So I'm glad you didn't take my advice.
I really did look everywhere. I went to Logan area, like as far out as anywhere you could find where I could find 200,000 plus or lesser property. I went as far out of Ipswich as possible so I can find within the price range. The criteria was within the price range, and then I'll check everything else out.
Yeah, when your budget's 200,000, it's like if you can just buy a property, that's success. It doesn't matter where you buy it.
Yeah. It's almost like everything else, I'll just figure it out because that was the only criteria. If I can't meet that criteria, everything else is like pointless. So even though everything was scary, like building and pest report, all of them came back terribly. Like none of them were good.
So what made you, I'm just curious because I think a lot of people go through this. So you've selected the suburb by default because there's only one that you could afford, select the property, and of course building in pests has come out really hairy and it's not filling you with confidence. But like a lot of people are scared of this process, and a lot of people kind of make up these stories in their head about what might go wrong, like, just like you did as well. Like, oh, what if tenants leave or they trash the place, or what if something happens and I need to like sell it, or it's like, oh, like it's such a big thing. You're doing this by yourself and you're in like a lot of debt whilst you're doing it and you're working very hard. Like, how did you get over that confidence hurdle?
Good question, because when I first bought the 2 properties, I didn't know how to be a good landlord. And there's materials out there, like, go to RTA website. There's all kinds of things there, but it's not designed in a way that teaches you how to handle everything. And so I did enroll myself to an REIQ course. And I didn't know what I was going to do with that course anyway, but I went with the full license course that allows me to start my own real estate agency. And I studied very, very hard. I think I finished my course within, what would you say, like 4 weeks or 8 weeks, maybe even. I dragged it out just course. And I had like 12 months to finish it. And I only did it for the purpose of wanting to know what it's like to be a proper landlord and how would a property manager handle these properties if I had a property manager in there. So I did the course, and it gave me a also access to RP data. So that's why I did the course, finished the course, but I just left it like hanging there for as long as possible because I got this software.
Okay. I didn't get access to RFI data. I've done that real estate course as well, but as in
Yeah,
like a check in the box exercise because
yeah.
tick in the box exercise because I'm a licensed real estate agent, even though I don't sell or buy properties. But yeah, I didn't get access to RFI data. You might have got a good deal or something. I don't know.
Oh no, but I did, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good. This is a lot of good information. I'm keeping this." Like I
Yeah.
did, I said I wasn't complete. Like I was letting my examination hang there for as long as possible. Yeah. So in terms of dealing with that confidence issue,
Mm,
what if this goes on? What if that goes on? That's how I handled it. Again,
okay.
by educating myself, I went
Education.
and got that course. So yeah, so I had that course, and I started the course when I still had the first two properties only. So and I used the same system as well, the RP data, to find this property that I managed to grab for another 200,000. And yeah, another location in Ipswich. And then yeah, so once I took out that next 100,000 equity, that's when I hit that borrowing wall. I couldn't get any more. So unfortunately, that's when things really got a bit more difficult. And so I went and started again re-educating myself because I've heard people have got 10 properties, 12 properties, anybody who's got more than three. And they were all like amazing to me. Like they were all like role models to me. If they had more than three, they were role models to me. So I knew there was a way to do it. So I did enroll myself into another course. Again, I had no money to do all this, like anything that I could scrape. But if I pay it into an education, and I think that education is gonna pay back, I took the risk. Like the REIQ one didn't have that money. I had like so little money, and I put it on payment plan, but I put it in there because I knew it was gonna pay back.
Right.
The same thing with this property course that I did. It was like 20 grand.
Oh my
I
God.
didn't have 20 grand at all. But I put that in on a payment plan. And
Right.
so that one paid off. That allowed me to learn about buying on the market, which I didn't even know was a thing.
Mhm.
And buying on the market was being able to do your research properly, like actually being able to identify what the market value is for that property and buying it below. Like I didn't know how to value properly. I only knew what I knew from REIQ, but there's actually more to it than that.
Yeah.
Yes, so much more to it than that. And so yeah, I did find another property, and but I didn't have the money anymore to buy it. The funny thing though at the time is because of COVID, I think borrowing was just getting easier and easier. So when I couldn't fund that fourth property that I found,
Mhm.
I was able to just within literally a matter of a month from when I couldn't fund it, I was able to fund it after a month just because of the changes in the economy. Again,
Okay.
that's another thing that I didn't quite understand. To me, I only knew I wasn't able to fund it. I didn't know the economics behind it. Didn't quite really understand that.
Right.
And I didn't have the money for the deposit, so I borrowed the deposit as well.
Oh
And I borrowed
wow.
money to renovate. And I turned that
Right.
into my first project. My
Okay.
first project that I wasn't going to hold on to. I was
Okay.
going to buy it, renovate, sell it. So
Got it.
that one was budgeted for 50, 60,000. So I
Right.
went from 3, 8 to 60.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah, that was a big jump, but that was a good renovation. And that was in the middle of COVID. So there were people who couldn't find, I guess, projects to work on or jobs to work on. So I got some good deals with trades and managed to get a decent renovation out of that one. The bad thing about it is that after it was finished, getting renovated, we're still in the middle of COVID period. So selling it was actually difficult, and I wasn't getting the price that I needed or I
Hmm.
wanted. So it didn't quite make sense to me to sell. So I had to keep pivoting. Like there's a lot of times that I had to pivot. And so with that one, I pivoted again from selling to trying to keep. So I went back again to my bank and asked them if they could lend me more money.
Yeah.
And yeah, the economic side of thing actually has a big thing to play as well with the property game. If you don't understand the economics, you don't understand why you're sometimes able to achieve something and why at times you're not. And at that particular time, that shouldn't have made sense. Like I shouldn't have been like given by the bank more money to keep that property, but they did. So I was able to pay back the money that I borrowed and have that again as one of my portfolio. But again, serviceability will hit, borrowing capacity will hit. So I was stuck again with just 4. So again, next thing, how do I keep going? More education. That property course that I did allowed me to learn about buying with partners, money partners, and allowed me to learn about negotiating with the bank. So I did those 2. I actually found off-market properties. I found an off-market property, and I bought that with money partners. And I learned about second-tier lenders. I learned about all these other tier lenders, which again, didn't really know. I thought they were all just banks. So I was able to fund that with a second-tier lender. I was able to get a money partner. And then the last property that I was able to add into my portfolio was one that I negotiated with the bank. And that one, I managed to negotiate that from the bank with 130,000 plus discount. So, yeah, thanks, bank.
So can you explain what do you mean by negotiate with the bank?
Yeah, so this one was a mortgagee in possession, and managed to speak with the owner about it. And the owner just walked away from it and just said, you can have it. So gave me all the legal documents I needed to have control of the property and speak on behalf of the owner with the bank and negotiate a settlement.
Wow. That is really some clever stuff. No, that's not what
that's
people
not normal.
do. Yeah, it's not normal at all. So you almost got possession, almost got like legal ownership of the property because of this nature of the sale. And then you're able to negotiate with the bank, because then it's like, well, they don't really care about a huge profit, right? They just want to get it off their book.
They want to get their money back. Yeah, get it off their loan books. And so, so I managed to negotiate that after 1 year plus though.
There's the catch.
That's the catch. It needs a lot of perseverance, but it's things like this that probably people wouldn't do, but I was willing to dive in there, learn it, and experience it for myself. Others would have gone too hard, but for me, every experience is a learning, and every experience adds weight to every other experience in life. It's like it's also compounding. Like compounding doesn't work just with money; it compounds as well in knowledge.
Truly. No, that's such a good lesson, I think, for all of us, because oftentimes we think, well, okay, great, Monica did this, amazing deal. She negotiated with the bank, but hey, it took a year. Should I really go down that path? It sounds like a lot of hard work and hassle. But when the pain of your current situation becomes so much, then the pain of having to change that situation and really dig your claws in and work hard to get somewhere is actually less than the pain of staying as you are. And so I think that is where like real art and real accomplishment and achievement is pursued and achieved, just like you did, because like you had to, there was no alternative. I think there's something really there's something really cool about that. It's like that it's always like the day one mentality. Like when a startup, you start a company, the mindset you have, the hunger, the drive you have is so intense. But when you already become a millionaire, like let's say 5, 10, 15 years later, and that company becomes a huge company, then you become complacent, and then you lose that innovative flair. You lose that panache, that X factor, that drive. So I think that's what I really appreciate about what you're sharing, because you're sharing it from a perspective like, I needed to make this work. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened.
There was no choice, just needed to make things work. And like, because all of these were, again, projects funded by other people's money, needed to make things work again. Because again, that's a debt again for me. And it wasn't really a debt that I liked, because it was high cost debt. We're talking about 15, 20% interest that I was paying on those money partner debts. And so I was fearful, but at the same time, I used the fear to drive that hunger to know how do I actually mitigate the risk of the fear eventuating. And so, with the second last one, I actually picked that up again without money. I used what I think called deposit bond. I again didn't know what a deposit bond is. And in fact, agents don't know. Like, I've not come across an agent so far to this day that knows of a deposit bond. And so most of the contracts I've signed with a deposit bond were done wrong the first time.
And what is a
So,
deposit bond? Honestly, I don't know. I've never used it.
okay, a
Yeah.
deposit bond is like an insurance. So you actually take it out from one of the mainstream insurers out there that offers a deposit bond. And all it is that they will vouch for you that if you are not able to settle the purchase, in my case, because it was an unconditional contract, if I wasn't able to settle the purchase and I wasn't able to pay the money, then they'll pay that money to
Right,
the seller and then
right,
they'll chase me for it. So it's a
right.
guarantee that the bank
And
will
then so you naturally have to give some sort of premium or fee
yeah,
to the insurance
small.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very small. So I was like, when I found
Oh.
out how small it is, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get two. Okay, one for this
I
price,
love that. I
one for
love how
that
there's like
price.
this like super calculated and analytical side, and then there's like, I'll get two, please.
And I had to on the shelf, oh, it's in discount.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I would buy deposit bonds for a price range that might suit what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for one that's within the 500,000, I'll go 500,000, whatever the deposit amount is for an auction, and then another 500,000, whatever the amount is for just a standard private treaty. So I would have like two deposit bonds, so that I could go with that one, and if that one's unconditional, here's that one's conditional. So it's like I'm giving myself options all the time.
Right.
So yeah, learned a whole bunch of things. Like learned about how to even deal with the bank. And like to be honest with you, the story about that one where it took 1 year to negotiate with the bank, others would have gone, was it really worth it? To me, it's still worth it. Because if I ever find myself in that situation where the bank wants to repossess my property, I know what to do. Yeah, so I feel like that is it's got a benefit. It's returned already, even though I don't really have to use that information and that knowledge right now, but I know how to deal with it if that time comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and same thing with with the deposit bond and going to auctions. Like I've never done any of those. I just did them. Oh well, I turned up to an auction and won that auction. That was my first auction, first deposit bond, first first one that I didn't have my phone, I just went for it and found a money partner. So I had like 3 properties that I went for in a very small space of time, using strategies that I just learned.
Yeah.
And I just executed.
But that's the beauty of what you're saying. Like you didn't, I mean, to some extent you did rush in, but you rushed in armed with knowledge. Like you did
Yes.
learn and educate and equip yourself with the right resources and tools. But then you rushed in, and like, I shouldn't say rushed in because that sounds reckless, but you didn't just wait around and become lazy and then got into the analysis paralysis mode of like, all right, well, I understand what a deposit bond is, but what if this happens and what if that happens? Like you had your bases covered, but you used that knowledge to take action. I think that's really something I want to highlight just for a second, because whether or not you do a course or not, or you just get free information, like utilize it, like use the information. And like the way you're speaking as well, Monica, I mean, you only started all this like a few years ago, but you're speaking with such confidence, and kind of like, how do I say, confidence, but also like competence. Like you're sounding like you know what you did. You did it with a clear conviction, and I think that's what people need to do. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but unless you act upon it with conviction, like what's the point, right?
Yeah. So even though there were times when I didn't really know what I was doing, I think I had this motto at the time that, fake it till you make it.
Yeah. And that's really, like, I have a theory, sorry to cut you off, but I have a theory that basically anyone or everyone who's successful, quote unquote, successful in life, whether they're like CEOs or founders or property, whatever, basically everyone's just faking it till they're making it. And when they do make it, then it's like, oh yeah, I knew that all along. Whereas like they were just taking it the whole time, and meanwhile everyone else is like, oh my god, like he or she's really got their act together. They're really intelligent. Meanwhile, they're just faking it, but they're taking action, right? And then
Yeah,
that's probably the
yeah.
difference.
Yeah, what people don't see is like some of the days where I've got tears in my eyes because I'm just like, holy shit, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or yeah, or I was just like highly stressed because I'm like, okay, have I done the right thing? Like there's the analysis paralysis before, and then there's the analysis paralysis after,
I
like
see. I
the
see.
buyer's regret. Like, yeah,
You're
I
reliving it in your mind.
yeah. Yeah, I had both of them, like really did. But at the end of the day, I kept going to myself. Now I know what I researched, I know what I studied, I feel confident enough. I'm gonna go back myself and I'm gonna go do it. Whatever happens next, it's on me. At least I know I tried my best. I did what I could to de-risk my risks, my known risks. There are probably going to be unknown risks, and I'm gonna learn them as I go. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how I pretty much approached everything. There came a point when I was trying to sell one of the properties that I bought, and I couldn't sell it because we went into this situation now with the interest rates rising, and I had already gotten my real estate license at the time, and I decided to sell it myself. Like, who does that? Just, I don't have a real estate background. I couldn't find a real estate agency to give me some work experience. I'm still keen to get some kind of work experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't find somebody to give me work experience. Couldn't find anybody to give me some hand, so I was even going to start with it. So I just started. I went back to my real estate license course and just followed the cues. I went to the bank, opened a trust account. I went and researched like the software that I needed to set up. I went and researched all the platforms out there, and I just started asking and asking and asking until I managed to get my real estate agency up and running, and I started selling my properties. So I couldn't sell one. I had to refinance that one. And when I refinanced that one, that became our PPOR.
Right.
So that's how it happened. Refinance out the money partner, made that our PPOR fully paid, but it was only going to be fully paid once I sell down some of my older properties.
Right.
So that was a negotiation I entered with my bank. I said to my bank, I want to pay this one off, turn it into my PPOR. I'll pay you back progressively as I realize my equity from my older properties. So I learned about changing securities. I learned about being able to keep my my low fixed interest rate mortgage. So things like this, like I didn't really learn it from anywhere else. Like I thought I always had to go to a mortgage broker. I did go to like 2 or 3 mortgage brokers, and they all said no. So eventually, I had to find my own way. And
Right.
so
you actually tried mortgage brokers, but then you decided, actually, I'm just going to figure this out by myself and go with the bank. And it sounds, because you mentioned a couple of times, it sounds like you actually built like quite a good relationship with this bank because you've dealt with it multiple times. And did you have like a manager that kind of got to know you?
Eventually, yes, I did, because they realized they gave me too much money. So they gave me a relationship manager. So so when they gave me a relationship manager, that's when things got easier in terms of negotiation. But when I did lose that relationship manager, things got a bit difficult again. Mm-hmm. But perseverance always works. Mm-hmm. And with these big banks, eventually they do listen. So where I couldn't get what I wanted with the bank, I eventually got it after 3 or 4 transfers to a different representative, and just reiterated the story, reiterated the plan. I said that I'm a professional investor, that I'm a CPA, and these are all the backgrounds that I've done. I gave them all the story, and so I gave them a story, almost like a business plan as to how I was going to pay down this property that I wanted to turn into my PPOR out of the sales that I'm going to make. So yes, I sold the first 4 that I bought, and realized the equity out of that one, paid down PPOR, paid down the car, paid down 2 of my money partners. I now have just 1 money partner and a long-term investor. That's it. And yeah, so I really cleared that up. And
Wow.
I feel good about it because I still have investment properties. I still have my low loan mortgage rate. I have a fully paid property, keeping me safe at night enough, and and a car that's also fully paid. The next phase of the plan is to, yeah, like have some further securities put in place. I still want this real estate agency to go to its next level. I'm not doing so much with it now because I'm done with the selling side of things.
Mhm.
I just used it to do my own selling. I'm not from a sales background too, but that's another one that I took on.
Or
Didn't
you sound like
not.
you can be very persuasive. I reckon if you, which you
I
have, like
hope
you've been
so.
able to negotiate with like both sellers and your bank. So you have some wayward words, I'm
Or maybe
sure.
I'm just very annoying. Just like, I keep coming back. You can't lose me.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, there's two ways to get like a relationship manager or like a private banker. One
Yeah,
way is to get enough net wealth, and then like CBA, for
yeah,
example, like have like
yeah.
they give you a private banker, and things become easy because like they know you. It's not really about the numbers anymore; it's about a relationship,
Yeah.
and then you can get so much borrowing capacity. Or it's the other way where you have no net worth and they really are like, hang on, we've lent this lady too much, better put a relationship manager on it. That's the
I'm
other
still
way. That's
better.
probably the higher risk way, but that's how you've done it. So you got some way of with words or whatever. Like you obviously done really well.
Somehow, take it till I make it. And
No, but I mean, take a bow because, like, from what you're saying, it sounds like from 2019 when you were 200K in debt, not good debt, this is not investment property
not
debt,
good
just like
at all.
really, really bad debt. And then you reshifted and relearned financial literacy and
Mhm.
money management to like it's 2023 now. So three and a
Mhm.
half, 4 years,
Yeah.
you've gone from 200K in debt to having your own principal place paid off, car paid off, plus one investment property. Am I right?
Yeah, I got multiple investment properties. So I
Okay.
just recently settled on a block of units with 3 units in there.
Uh-huh.
I still have one detached house. I've still got another project. It's a subdivisible land. And yeah, that's the five investment
Wow.
properties on top of
Wow.
the fully paid PPOR.
I have so much respect for that because when I started, it took me 4 years to get three investment properties. And in 4 years, you've not only got more investment properties than me, you've also got your principal place of residence paid off, and I started off with no debt. You started off with 200K debt. So yeah, that's just such a cool thing to hear, and I think it's just like proof, even though this sounds a bit like woohoo and like, fluffy, but it goes to show that you don't need resources. Like you don't need to be rich, even though the media says property investors are rich. Most property investors aren't rich who start off. They're just resourceful. The ones who actually become successful, they're resourceful, they're tenacious, they ask lots of questions. Like you don't appear to be having an ego at all. Like you're asking so many questions to so many different people, professionals and otherwise. And yeah, just grit. I think that's what it requires. You don't just get ahead in life because you do like a course and then automatically that course, because you paid for the course, it starts raining money. That's not how it happens. You have to do the education free or otherwise, but then you have to put it into action. And even then there's going to be hurdles, right? There's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be
It never
curveballs.
stops.
Yeah, and you have to be proactive. Like how do are you born with like this kind of can-do attitude, or did you learn it, or
Um,
just kind of do you
it
want to
might
share
be
that?
one, I'm not even sure. But I guess I can relate that back to maybe my mom and dad. Everything that I do, it's because I put them in my mind. Like they're my biggest value. So I like to think that I am doing what I'm doing because I want to be able to repay all the hard work and all the sacrifices that they did so that they could provide the best possible future for myself and my sister. Because we're immigrants. So to be honest with you, I was so doubtful and I had no confidence in myself when I started. I thought, I'm a female, I am young, I am um, an immigrant. I have English as my second language. Like I had everything I felt was gonna go against me in life, and there were people around me who didn't have confidence in what I was able to probably achieve in life. So yeah, I had no like something to start with in terms
Mm.
of, like I'm privileged. Like I didn't feel privileged at all.
Mhm.
I just went with it, and I just kept looking at my parents. Like every time I look at my mom and my dad's faces, I just think to myself, yeah, they always give me that fire, that burn, and that desire to keep going, 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 because they didn't do what they had to do for nothing. They
Mm.
did what they did because they wanted to see the best future possible for myself and my sister, for the kids. So I want that. I wanted to make it happen and crystallize that, make it worth every bit of the time that they spent.
Amazing. That's so, yeah, I'm getting a little bit goosebumps like just listening to that, because I can't relate to it like perfectly, but a lot of those things I can relate to. And when you see like immigrant parents, how hard they worked and continue to work to kind of get us into the position that we're in to be able to have opportunity. Yeah, there's a sense of like you want to repay them and you want to make them feel
Yes.
proud that everything that they did was worthwhile and that we're not just drop kicks. We
Yeah.
actually ended up being something or someone. So yeah, that's really cool. And is that like, what's your kind of purpose or why of expanding your property portfolio going forward? Because I'm sure your
Yeah.
parents are already super proud of you. I know you kind of lied to them in the middle there, but let's let that one slide. But like, what's your kind of future purpose? Are you like doing it for your family now, or you're like growing
Yeah.
family in the future, or what's
I
kind of
do have a
motivating you
big
now?
family. Yeah. So I have a big family as a whole.
Uh-huh.
But here in Australia, I have a small family here. And so I still have quite a lot of family back home in the Philippines that I also want to see them um, have their lives changed.
Hmm.
And so the purpose for me in continuing on with the journey is because I want to be able to also leave a legacy.
Hmm.
I want to create a ripple effect. In a way, this interview, I'm also doing it because I wanted to create that ripple effect even outside of my family circle. Because I know that there will be other people who could probably resonate with my old story when I had all kinds of doubts going in my head about my abilities to make something of good happen.
Hmm.
Or whether a female, an immigrant, a young person, and English as a second background, it's a second language. We're mixing it all up now. Like whether that can actually lead you to anything. So I'm hoping at least I'm creating a ripple effect of inspiring those people who could resonate partly or fully to where I started from. And at the same time, I understand now so much how education can really make a big difference in people's lives. And I now I have like my cousin. I am teaching her the things that I know. I'm teaching her all of the characteristics I've learned in life to be able to succeed. And I've started with one person, and I'm hoping that she's also going to be able to create that ripple effect in back in my
That's
hometown.
beautiful.
So yeah, so I'm hoping that it's that ripple effect. I want to create that. So my parents did something for me and my sister. Me and my sister are okay now too. I want to create next ripple effect.
Yeah, and that's what we need. Like, we need more change makers in our
Mm.
society, in our community, like just globally. We need more people like you who have experienced something and they're trying to pass it on. It's like that quote. I think there's a Stoic philosopher, Seneca, and he said that happiness unshared can scarcely be called happiness. Like, to really be all rounded, you don't just want to do it for yourself, not just for your immediate family members, but you want to like create that ripple effect, as you say, and help as many people as you can. And then that's why I'm really grateful that you sort of volunteered to share your story when I put that post on Facebook saying, oh, who would like to inspire and educate others by just sharing their own story, warts and all. I'm really grateful that we had this session. And obviously, for what it's worth, like, I'll share it on all my platforms, YouTube and Facebook and the podcast. And yeah, I'm sure like, tens of thousands of people will hear it and watch it, and what you've done will genuinely have that impact.
I hope so. That's exactly the intention that I want. And I'm more than willing to share some more of my stories if anybody wants to reach out to me. Like, I love helping other people. Like, I love sharing. I freely share what I know for others to benefit them. Like, yeah, I think that's how I want to repay back. I think the universe gave me some success. I want to give back to the universe in whatever shape or form I can help.
No, that's beautiful. You have a very beautiful heart. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And before we wrap up, is there just any last piece of advice for anyone or just anything else that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think if there's any last thing that I want to say, I think people really need to, start educating themselves if they're uncertain how to get started. I still see some chat questions in the group at times, like, how do I get started?
Yeah.
Education is always the best way to start. It doesn't matter where you start, just educate yourself and just keep following breadcrumbs from there. And that's where it will lead you to the next steps.
Breadcrumbs.
Next
Yeah.
step, yeah, and from there it's taking action, backing yourself.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I will put this in the Facebook group, Australian Property Investment Mastery with Peak, and I'll tag Monica with her permission. So you're most welcome to ask questions or leave comments or get in touch with her by DM directly. I think the beauty is, like, when you have real people share their real stories, and of course she's very successful. I don't know how this would go because I don't know her story fully, but like you get a sense of education, but also inspiration. Inspiration is like the gas. You need someone to like G you up, give you that burn in your belly to push the acceleration pedal, but then you also need to know how to steer, and that's where education comes in. Acceleration, without education, you're going to crash the car. I think those two really worked well together. And then realization as well, like, it's not always going to be 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds. There's going to be points at which you need to turn, points at which you need to dodge, like, I don't know, this analogy is not going well, but like a kangaroo's like jumped across the road or whatever. But you need
Changing plans.
exactly. You pivoted your strategy a number of times as you were getting more and more educated, and the banks are pushing back. So I think that's really important. And I think just to reiterate as well, I think it's really hard to find these types of stories where there's no agenda, because normally on podcasts and YouTube, people get people on and they're like actually a mortgage broker, or actually they're an accountant and they're trying to, like, it's a PR exercise for them, or actually they're buyer's agent or whatever. Like, I have nothing to gain from having Monica on. Monica has nothing to gain from being on here. It's just from the goodness of her own heart. So I think that's what makes it most powerful. Well, just on behalf of the whole community, all 30,000 people on YouTube and like 30 on the podcast and almost 40 on the Facebook group, I just want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, VK, and then speak again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Let's continue the chat, and thank you everyone for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. See you later.